This new work found me before I understood it. It carries longing, history, and love. This painting began about 9 months ago. A friend of mine, a live model, came over to pose for reference photos, so as always, we experimented during the session. With facial features, movement, and with color. So I began throwing pinks and blues across his skin and then mixing them. I wanted the result to look colorful and mysterious at the same time. And at that time, I didn't have a theme. I didn't know what I wanted this painting to be about. We were just having fun. We were just exploring. So after nearly 700 shots, one specific photo that my friend and I created kept calling my name. I don't know, I couldn't explain it. It felt romantic and intimate. I kept returning to it. So I began sketching, trying to build a portrait from that moment, but something wasn't right. The portrait felt flat and disconnected from the emotion I felt when I saw it the very first time. So I decided to step away, not to search for inspiration exactly, but to create space. I started reading, letting my mind rest and absorb other stories, other lives, other desires. So during that pause, I watched a movie called The Happy Prince, a biographical portrait of Oscar Wilde focused on the final years of his life. So the movie begins at the height of his fame, then descends into what followed, which was his arrest and imprisonment. So Oscar Wilde was convicted in 1895 of gross indecency, a charge used at the time to criminalize relationships between men. He was sentenced to 2 years of hard labor. I was captivated. The movie felt romantic and tragic, tender yet daring in its portrayal of love between men during a time when such love meant exile, ruin, and silence. And as the story unfolded, it explored his relationship with his lover, Lord Alfred Douglas, and the devastation that followed his release from prison. So afterwards, Wilde lived in exile. Wilde never again regained his former fame. He lived between France and Italy in poverty and fragile health, separated from his children and largely abandoned by society. Yet he continued to write. He continued to love and to endure. He died in Paris in 1900. All of this led me to want to know more about him, about Oscar Wilde, the man beyond the myth. After his release, Wilde lived under the name Sebastian Melmoth, which leads me to Saint Sebastian. Saint Sebastian is a Catholic martyr often depicted as a beautiful young man pierced by arrows, suffering and vulnerable and transcendent. So over centuries, artists and viewers have gravitated towards his image. Beauty intertwined with pain, desire entangled with persecution, the body both sacred but exposed. This journey also led me deeper into Wilde's literary works. Although I had already read it, I returned to the picture of Dorian Gray and discovered that there's an uncensored version of the picture of Dorian Gray where passages were once softened by editors were restored. And then I found a book that I found invigorating, De Profundis, Wilde's longing, aching letter written from prison, part confession, part love letter, part spiritual reckoning. I could not put it down. It felt intimate. It felt like gossip. It was raw. It was wounded. It was human. And I thought it was brilliant. One day while cleaning my studio, I came across the half-painted portrait of my friend. This is what it looked like. And then in that quiet moment, everything just began to make sense. Inspiration moved through the room. I began to work with urgency and clarity. I knew exactly where the painting needed to go. Suddenly, the painting began to make sense. The portrait I was creating started to speak to me. It became a retelling of Saint Sebastian, of Wilde's suffering and defiance, of Dorian Gray and the masks we wear, of queer longing, survival, and transformation. The painting came alive as an homage, but not only to Wilde, but to the lineage of queer expression that refuses erasure and still faces resistance today, something I wish belonged only in the past, but it doesn't. I imagine Wilde standing before this portrait of this wounded, beautiful figure, and I imagine that Oscar understands him. I imagine Oscar's face, happy, in love, giddy. I imagine him free, and it's heartbreaking. In the painting, an arrow pierces the heart, carrying Wilde's words into the body, a letter of love, loss, and truth. Words drawn from the Ballad of Reading Gaol by Oscar Wilde. Yet each man kills the thing he loves. By each let this be heard. Some do it with a bitter look, some with a flattering word. The coward does it with a kiss, the brave man with a sword. Some love too little, some too long. Some sell, others buy. Some do the deed with many tears, and some without a sigh. This painting holds romance, sorrow, and history. It holds parts of my life and secrets that will remain mine alone. So I'm still learning how to talk about my work, and maybe this is part of that process. This video is part of my attempt to make art feel attainable, approachable, not distant or intimidating, and not reserved for the wealthy or just the few. So I hope this work speaks to you, whoever you are. I hope you feel something in it. I hope you recognize a moment of yourself. This is my offering to you. So I present to you my new painting titled The Passion of Wilde.